What's up, E-World? What it do? What it do? What it do? It stormed last night down here in Virginia. And, boy, I can tell you, we really needed it. And, reason being is because the damn piling. Yeah, I parked all crazy. Look at that. That's me. That's me, fellas. That's my bad parking. But anyway, we needed that rain, that storm, because the piling down here is terrible. I mean, I ain't never seen it piling so bad. I mean, I don't know if you can see the street. And this is after the rain, but it is still remnants there of just how bad the piling was. And I mean, it is pretty bad. You can see I got my my little duster in the back seat because I try to come out and dust the piling off. But this piling is so bad, it can't even dust off. It's sticky and gooky and gooey. I ain't ever seen nothing like it. But anyway, topic for the discussion today. You know, although I'm out here rinsing these cars off, this is still about e-bike stuff and DIY. Because my channel is DIY. And look at that. Today's discussion for some of you guys out there that consider yourself DIY guys, I want to ask a question. I'm going to have to move my car, set it right. I can't even get the truck. But yeah, here's my question. Are you a parts replacer or are you a parts repairer? Are you a fixer or are you a faker? Now, the difference being, a part replacer can do exactly what it sounds like. He can replace a part. It's just a straight up replacement. And that's if by some reason he knows that that's the part that needs replacing. I don't know what that other. But anyway, a repairer can fix it, fix anything. A replacer may just keep on throwing parts at it and replacing parts until he lucks up and stumbles on the right part, where, you know, the repair, he's going to be able to diagnose and troubleshoot and replace the right part without guessing and just throwing parts at a problem. And then he can make stuff work. You know, if he doesn't have the right part, he may be able to make the part, or take the broken part and repair the broken part, or take a part that belongs to something else and do that. But anyway, reason why I'm discussing that today is because I keep getting a lot of questions about dropouts, you know, on bikes. You know, the dropout. Well, this motor work, or most of the time, it's not that. It's people reading and listening to what they think is the right thing. And I mean, normally, it's the right thing, but it's the right thing if you're a parts replacer. If you're a parts replacer, you have to stick with what's supposed to be. You know, if they say Super 73 has 195 meter dropout, then that's exactly what a parts replacer needs, is a motor, rim, wheel with 195 meter dropout. Or like my bike only has 170 millimeter dropout. Now, average person would think that there was no way you could take a Super 73 rim or motor and put it on my bike, but they would be completely wrong about that. Now, if you're that parts replacer, then yeah, you need for that dropout to be exactly right. You need to be able to take that rim and take it off, or order it, or whatever you're doing, wherever you're getting it from. You need it to be exactly right spec, on the money, so you can unbolt the other one and stick one on there. Now, if you're a repair or a real DIY guy, see, you got different levels of DIY, and for the most part, I give respect to anybody DIY, no matter what level you are, because you're at least attempting to do something on your own, do it yourself, which is what DIY is all about, doing it yourself. But yeah, so anyway, let me talk about this dropout stuff. Now, as far as rear dropouts go, okay, notice that that direct drive that I have on the back of Frank, was designed for 195 millimeter dropout. And the first thing a person would say is that's not gonna fit. But obviously it fits because it's on Frank. Now, the good part about dropouts and the axles and all that, for the most part, as long as that axle piece, the actual axle, is long enough, I'm gonna make it fit. Now, I can't extend the axle if it's not long enough. I can't magically make an axle longer. But for the most part, every motor that's out there to be honest, most of them, the axles are all the same length. So you don't have to worry about the axle part. I haven't seen an axle yet where the axle was too short. When they're talking about 170 millimeter and 190 millimeter dropout, they're talking about the dimensions from the inside of the fork, if you're going to call that a fork in the rear, the inside to the inside of the other side. Now, a parts replacer needs for that motor to, like I said, it needs to exactly line up. Exactly for a parts replacer. He needs to put it on and everything lines up. And by lining up, just the axle lining up into the fork. And you also have to remember that your brake rotor needs to line up with your brake caliper, which is the most important part of lining stuff up, making sure that your brake and your brake rotor lines up. And I'll say that's the most important part, but I mean, to me, not really, none of it. To me, like I said, the most important part is that actual axle being long enough where it's long enough to where you have enough room on each side to put some nuts and bolts, some bolts on it and lock it down. But all the other little millimeters and everything lining up, all that's minute, insignificant stuff. You know, when they're talking about 195 millimeter, 175 millimeter, we are talking about millimeters of difference. You know, a millimeter is not that great. And you also know between 70 millimeters and 95 millimeters, that's 25 millimeters. That may sound like a lot, but honestly, 25 millimeters really ain't a whole lot. I mean, we're talking about differences like that, and like that, and like that, and like that. So, needless to say, you can make a 195 millimeter design motor fit on 170 millimeter dropout. And a lot of times, all you have to do is use some spacers or some shims or some washers, whatever you want to call it, to move stuff. Now, notice, it can be crude sometimes, but to me, it's about making it work. Now, notice Frank has these two big washers right here, or I'll call them spacers. That's what was necessary for me to put there to make this 195 millimeter dropout rim wheel motor combination fit on Frank. I had to use these two big washers there, and I had to remove some washers and spacers on this side. And not only that, my brake rotor and my caliper were off by a couple of millimeters. So I had to use some washers and spacers to move that. You do realize that your caliper has two bolts there, has a nice long bolt that goes through it. If you needed to move your caliper in a little more, you just put a couple spacers or washers on the inside. You need to move it out a little more, you might have to sand down or, file down some stuff. Things can be made to work. So basically, all this video was about, fellas, I'm sorry about that, was that you can make different dropouts work, or different motors fit in different dropouts, merely with using spacers and shims to move stuff where you need it to be, or you may have to sand down some things. A lot of times, forks in the rear, We're talking millimeters. If you need to open it up, you can easily open it up. You can do whatever you have to do to open that rear fork section up, as long as you're not stretching it out too far where you're compromising the metal strength. And when we're talking a couple millimeters, you're not compromising the metal if you're just going to bend it or flex it out a little bit. Or maybe it's too wide and you need to close it in a little bit. That's why they call this stuff modifying. That's why they call it modding. Modding means modifying. When you modify something, you make it work. So, anyway, that's just a little short, quick discussion on that as far as that. Because if I get another comment where somebody tells me, well, it's not going to work, or you can't use this on that because it's got this amount of dropout and that amount of dropout, man, please don't do that to me. You do that to yourself. Me, I'm a martyr. I'm going to make it work. Anyway, that's the lesson and discussion for today. And that can be applied to any and all things when it comes to e-bikes. Modding is modding. Modifying something to make it work. Deuces, fellas. Let me get these cars cleaned off so I can take Frank on a ride.